Hi, everybody. This is Decoding Yoga, the show where we talk about the misconceptions, the doubts, the myths about yoga, when we discuss about the what's, whys, and hows. And today we have the second part of this really interesting topic, the breath. We have a very special guest in the house. We have Inga again with us. We are recording this episode from India, from Goa. So, Inga, thank you so much for being with us again, covering the second part of this topic that we take for granted. Breathing is something that we normally do. I think it's one of the first functions that we do when we come to the world. Is one of the last functions that we will do when we leave. Breathing, right? So we don't pause to think, but it is a quite um, common topic in all the yoga asana classes. You will hear all the teachers coordinating the breathing with the movement. Inhale for 5, exhale for 5. In all the classes, one breath, one movement. The breath is kind of like the thread in this mala of asanas. But after talking to you and taking some classes with you, we have learned that probably we have been doing all this wrong. So we started the previous week talking about this. So welcome again in this second episode about the breath.
Thank you, Ellie. Thank you for having me back. And I'm very glad that we have more time to delve into this because I could speak about this for hours. So please do keep me on track if I go on too long on any of the topics. But yes, I'm very glad to revisit this. And where we kind of left it off last time is exactly that we maybe have gotten it wrong. Yes, breathing is important, but more breathing is not necessarily healthy for us. If anything, big breathing, loud, heavy breathing, the more you breathe is actually correlated with not that great of health. So it's when you look at statistics or people who have some health issues, it very often correlates with big breathing. So people with asthma, people with heart disease, people with anxiety and panic attacks. And that was very much my case, that people in those categories or with chronic pain, or there's very often some kind of underlying health condition will be accompanied with big breathing, because healthy breathing is subtle breathing. Healthy breathing is inaudible, quiet, always through the nose. Our nose is for breathing. Our mouth is for talking. So if there's one thing to take away, maybe it's exactly like never breathe through the mouth. There's never any benefit to breathe through the mouth. So we should always be breathing through the nose. And our breathing should be invisible when at rest. People shouldn't see or hear our breathing. And it has that normal diaphragmatic movement as well. Then on the other hand, what's that dysfunctional breathing is basically the opposites of these qualities that I've just mentioned. It's going to be big, it's going to be loud, visible to another person. We can often see, like the movement of a breath, healthy movement of a breath should be like a little balloon inflating out to the sides from the lower rib cage and deflating on the exhale from the lower rib cage. So moving out to the side as you inhale and in as you exhale. Whereas what we find with like dysfunctional or that big, heavy breathing that we often, encourage people to take in yoga as well, take a deep breath in. It all tends to move up and down, shallow breathing in the chest. People often open their mouths to even take that deep breath in. And again, big breathing is not a sign of health. When you start paying attention to people around you or yourself, because, the way we breathe massively impacts the way we feel. There's a loop. The way we feel impacts how we breathe. The way we breathe then feeds back into how we feel. And then when you start paying attention to the people around you or yourself, you really do see that link. The heavier, the louder, the bigger you're breathing, just the more kind of visible or loud, the more you're going to feel a bit agitated. So yes, big breathing is not healthy breathing. And in yoga world, we should also, because we're all about that, right? People find yoga to calm themselves because the world around, and life is full of stress and everything. So I think most people find yoga because of those things that we hear about it, that it's calming, that it's centering, that it's grounding.
Yeah, but it's interesting because now I have found more and more often, because I like to attend to yoga classes, when they ask you to take a deep, long breath in and then sigh it out through your mouth. And they actually ask you to open your mouth and and in that long sound out is where people feel that they are letting go and relaxing. But then when I think about when you are having a panic attack, the first thing that the doctor tells you to do is to have a bag in your mouth and breathe into the bag. They're not
Yeah.
asking you to take a long inhalation and to open your mouth to breathe. They're asking you to breathe in a bag. And I think that is the key that we have been missing. And that has a logic. Why, instead of take a deep inhale in and sigh it out, as we have been taught lately, which I don't know who invented that, instead of going back to that very, I don't know, like homemade or very simple trick of having a bag with you, a paper bag, and breathe into the bag. And can you please explain what is happening in that bag and
Yeah.
why that is important for us to know? Because this is when we left from last week. There is this relationship between these two gases that
Mm-hmm.
happen when we breathe, that we only have been paying attention to one, the
Yeah.
oxygen, but we also have another one. Can you
Yes.
please take us into
Yes.
that?
And thank you for bringing that paper bag analogy, because it's another mind-blowing thing when you think about it or hear about the mechanism that happens there. But it exactly demonstrates that gas exchange that happens and its effect on the body. So again, we know and hear that we need oxygen. Of course we do. But we need a balance of carbon dioxide as well to play with that oxygen. So they work hand in hand for that efficient gas exchange. So of course, when we inhale, we take oxygen. And when that oxygen leaves our body, you know, that gas exchange happens. We get rid of excess carbon dioxide. So too much of carbon dioxide is not going to be good for us, but we need enough of it to do that important role that it does in that breathing physiology, that function that takes place, that it's the carbon dioxide that unlocks the oxygen molecules that are in your bloodstream to be delivered into the body's tissues and cells, brain, and all the organs to do its job. And so when you think about that paper bag analogy, why this works and why it calms the person down, it's exactly that is what we're helping. So when we are panicking, when we are stressed, emotionally agitated, our breathing is going to become faster, shallower. We will start to breathe a lot. We're kind of hyperventilating. People start to breathe through the mouth, or they can feel out of breath, that they're gasping or sighing. And very often stress and, panic or anxiety is going to be associated with that shallow breathing. And then that shallow breathing makes us feel very uncomfortable, out of breath, almost like claustrophobic, right? And the more you're breathing in those moments, it's so counterintuitive. The heavier, the faster you keep breathing that way, the more you're keeping yourself stuck in that vicious cycle. Because by over breathing there, breathing fast, you're depleting the carbon dioxide levels, right? Because you're just exhaling and sighing out, and your respiratory rate is high. And as a result, because now we know that effect, right? That it's the carbon dioxide that releases the oxygen molecules, that we need enough of it in the blood to do its job. So then you feel dizzy, not enough oxygen is reaching actually your brain. So then when we're hyperventilating, the faster our breathing, the more our flight or fight mode kicks in. So what that paper bag does, why it works, is that you're breathing in and out of it. So you're not getting more or new oxygen in that bag, but you keep breathing back that carbon dioxide that you're exhaling, right? And you're bringing it back. And it's through breathing in that bag that you're allowing those levels to balance out, that the carbon dioxide can restore itself, climb back up. And as that happens, that calms your system down, and that releases more of that oxygen you already have in your body. And that sends your brain the signal, it's okay, we can calm back down a little bit. So I think one more important thing just to drive here, that again, our body at any given time, our body is so intelligent, and the way we've evolved to be is we always have more than we need oxygen. So almost 96 to 99% of oxygen is fully saturating our blood. There's enough of it. There's so much of it. So when we're inhaling more oxygen, it's not really changing that oxygenation process. The oxygenation process is rather controlled, or it's made efficient through that relationship with carbon dioxide. And I can talk more about, but you go ahead to guide me where you want a question.
Because basically I think in images, right? So when I hear you talking about this, so basically what you're trying to say is our body already has 96 to 98 percentage of saturation of oxygen. We already have a lot of oxygen. It's like having a glass of water full of water, right? So when we start inhaling rapidly, let's say we are not only in yoga, but we, as you said, when we are having a panic attack, or when we feel anxious, or when we are exercising, when we are doing cardio, when we are running, when we're jumping, what we're doing is having that glass of water is full of water, and we are putting more water in. So basically all the water is sort of coming out, and it's not changing anything because the glass is full, right? We still feel agitated, and we still feel tired, and we still feel out of breath, and we keep inhaling more, and we keep feeling even more tired. And basically here, what we try to do is not to pour more water into the glass, is how we use the water that we already have, right? This is an analogy between water and oxygen. How is it that we can utilize the water that we already have to actually go and work in the cells that needs that oxygen, in the muscles, in the moving the blood, in making our body be functional? And I remember when you gave me the example, if we start running, we have a very long beach here close to Sampurna. So if we go and run this beach next to an athlete or someone who runs marathons, right? We may finish the run with them, but we will be out of breath. Well, for them, it will be just like nothing. And it's all also because it has to do with the efficiency of how they use the oxygen that they already have, so they don't have to take more. While we, since we don't know how to breathe, we are just taking more without actually utilizing the oxygen that we have. Is that correct? Am I understanding this correctly?
It's pretty much correct, but a tiny bit to add is that basically by breathing more, we're not able to take more of that oxygen right in the blood, but the body is constantly balancing these two gases out by itself, because the relationship between oxygen and carbon dioxide affects our pH balance of the blood. And our pH balance is also such an important thing in our body. Everything needs to be balanced. And especially with that pH balance, it's like a tiny deviation from that pH is like life or death in our body. You know, if it's too acidic or it's too alkaline. So our body is constantly keeping that in balance. And the way it does that, because our oxygen levels don't vary that much, because there's little room and we're always almost full of it, the way the body adjusts that pH balance that changes in relation to carbon dioxide and oxygen is that it adjusts it based on carbon dioxide levels. So basically, when we overbreathe, it's not so much that the oxygen levels kind of change, right? In our, because our body can't take more, it's already saturated. What happens is that it forces us to expel carbon dioxide, if you see what I mean. So it adjusts that level. So that means that it drops it down. And so just to drive, like, carbon dioxide, again, it's not the villain, it's not the waste gas. It actually plays a crucial role, many roles. It regulates our breathing. What makes us inhale is not lack of oxygen. It's our body's tolerance to increasing levels of CO2. So it's that when the carbon dioxide levels are increasing, it's that sends the trigger to your brain to inhale. And so yes, it regulates our breathing. it is that catalyst to release the oxygen molecules, as I've mentioned many times, into the body to feed it. It regulates the pH balance, or it's regulated based on CO2. And it's also a vasodilator. So it's the carbon dioxide, as it increases, it actually dilates the smooth muscle, and that opens up our arteries. And so the blood circulation moves more freely, and that oxygen is delivered and is doing its job. So yeah, it's
Great.
an incredible, important component.
So let's do one thing. Next week, because we still have 2 more episodes to talk about this, next week, the CO2 is going to be our star. It's going to be the start of the episode. We're going to be talking about how we can increase, maybe not how to increase it, like in theory. And then in the last episode, we're going to be doing some practical exercises. But next week, let's talk about how to make our breath more effective and functional, so we can have a healthier body, but also a healthier nervous system and mental life, right? So thank you so much for this. So interesting. I know we can talk for hours about this. We don't have the time to do it, so we have to split it in parts. So we will invite you to the third part of this revelation about a breath, and we will talk about the CO2 next week. Thank you so much, Inga. Have a lovely week, and I will meet you back here next Saturday. Thank you, everybody, for watching, for listening. We will meet you in 7 days. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Hi, and thank you so much for watching this video. After so many years of teaching in yoga teacher training courses, I realized that a lot of people don't understand exactly what yoga is, or they have a lot of misconceptions and doubts. And that's why I created the podcast Decoding Yoga. Every week, I share a new episode with you where I talk about cues, about postures, about yoga as a lifestyle, about these myths, these doubts, these ideas that we have been repeating in yoga classes, and we don't even know what they mean. We don't understand what those cues mean, and we keep repeating them. So we have repeated so many times that we believe they're true. So I hope you can join me in the next episode. You can watch the video here, or you can look for the show in any of the audio platforms available. And if you have a question, a doubt, you have heard a myth about yoga and you want some clarification, let me know below this video, and I will be happy to create a program to reply to you. Thank you.